Every single spring, millions of homeowners across the country engage in this totally bizarre, highly expensive ritual.
Oh, yeah. The patio furniture trap.
Exactly. We
Yeah.
walk out into our backyards, stare at this flat, uninspired patch of grass, and decide that the solution to our outdoor misery is a massive trip to a big box store.
Right, and you end up dropping hundreds or even thousands of dollars on plush patio
Right.
sets.
We drop all this cash, arrange it perfectly on the lawn or like on a flimsy wooden deck, and then we just sit back and watch the environment slowly dissolve our investment.
It really is the definition of a losing battle. The sun bakes it, the rain rots it, the wind throws it across the yard.
Yeah, we are constantly fighting an environment that clearly does not want those objects there.
And yet we just keep rebuying the furniture, right? Just hoping this time the weather will somehow, show mercy.
Which it never, ever does. And so that brings us to the core of today's deep dive. We are looking at how to fundamentally stop fighting your yard and start mastering it.
It's a great topic.
So our source material today is a really fascinating industry case study and guide from Palmetto Concrete. They're a specialized hardscaping contractor operating along the Manatee River in Florida.
Which is arguably one of the most hostile climates for backyard furniture in the entire country.
Oh, absolutely.
Ah.
So we're using their localized expertise as a lens to unpack this massive trend that's taking over outdoor design right now, the concrete retaining seating wall.
It's a brilliant vantage point, honestly, because it forces us to look at the intersection of extreme weather survival, structural engineering, and believe it or not, spatial psychology.
Yeah, right.
This isn't just about making a yard look pretty for a barbecue. The shift we're seeing is a move away from the idea that outdoor luxury is just throwing down expensive temporary accessories.
Yeah, like those oversized cushions that get soaked in 5 minutes.
Exactly. True outdoor luxury, especially in a really volatile climate, is about altering the actual geography of your property. It's about, engineering permanence.
I really want to start with that volatile climate, because to understand why a homeowner would commission a massive concrete structure in their yard, you kind of have to understand the specific battlefield they're dealing with.
Right. The environment dictates everything.
The guide lays out the reality of Manatee County weather, and honestly, it reads like a torture test for building materials.
Oh, it really does. When we talk about weather degradation, people usually just think of rain. But in coastal Florida, you're dealing with a compounded assault.
A tag team of elements.
Yeah, it's this relentless tag team that attacks materials on a molecular level.
The breakdown in the source material is startling. You have this scorching July sun beating down. But it isn't just hot, right?
No, it's baking the moisture right out of traditional wood decking, which causes it to shrink, warp, and violently splinter.
And then you hit August, which brings the threat of hurricane-force winds and those lightweight, trendy resin chairs we all buy.
Suddenly become terrifying aerodynamic projectiles.
Yeah, exactly. But even beyond the dramatic weather, there's the silent killer. The guide highlights this using data from the Florida Climate Center.
The everyday atmosphere.
Right. You have this suffocating heavy humidity combined with corrosive salt air drifting over from the Gulf Coast and places like Sneed Island.
It's brutal.
But I always wonder, can't we just treat the materials like, I don't know, use galvanized steel or heavily sealed cedar?
I mean, you can delay the decay, sure, but you can't stop the chemistry.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, the salt in the air acts as an incredibly efficient electrolyte. It drastically speeds up the oxidation process, meaning iron and steel inevitably rust no matter how many layers of protective paint you apply.
Wow.
And wood is naturally porous, right? It wants to act like a sponge. So in constant humidity, it swells.
And then the sun comes out.
Exactly. When the sun comes out, it bakes and shrinks. That endless expansion and contraction cycle physically tears the cellular structure of the wood apart.
So basically, outfitting a coastal Florida yard with standard wooden or metal patio furniture is like, it's like buying a convertible for an Arctic expedition.
That is a much better way to look at it, yeah.
It's just fundamentally mismatched to the reality of the environment.
You are bringing a fragile philosophy into a brutal arena, and that inevitability of destruction, that is the true catalyst for this entire hardscaping trend.
Homeowners just reach a breaking point.
They do. Replacing rotted decking and rusted metal fire pits every 3 seasons isn't just wildly expensive, it creates this psychological fatigue.
Oh, for sure.
It generates an intense demand for a fortress material.
And concrete is the ultimate defiant material. It doesn't care about humidity. It doesn't oxidize in salt air. It just sits there, completely indifferent to the weather.
Indifferent is the perfect word.
But here is where I get a bit tripped up on the actual design being used in the source material.
Mm-hmm.
The solution these palmetto families are swearing by isn't just a concrete slab.
Yeah.
It's a retaining seating wall. So if I just want a permanent place to sit that won't blow away in a Category 3 hurricane, why are we terraforming the yard to hold back tons of dirt?
It seems like overkill, right?
Yeah, like why not just bolt some heavy cast iron benches into a flat patio?
That's the critical distinction here. You have to look at what the property actually needs versus what the homeowner wants.
Okay.
A retaining seating wall is uniquely brilliant because it solves a massive geographical liability while simultaneously providing a lifestyle upgrade.
So let's tackle the geographical liability first, the retaining aspect, because retaining implies we are holding something back.
Correct. Along the Manatee River and the broader coastal lowlands, you are rarely dealing with perfectly flat, perfectly draining land.
Right.
You have slight elevations, poor natural drainage, and sandy soil. When you introduce heavy torrential Florida rainfall into that mix, the soil shifts, it erodes.
So you just pour a flat patio at the bottom of a slope.
Every major storm is going to wash mud and topsoil right across your brand new entertainment space.
Oh, that sounds like a nightmare.
It is. A retaining wall physically anchors the earth. It creates a definitive barrier, holding the grade of the yard in place and stopping that erosion dead in its tracks.
Okay, so you aren't just buying a seat. You're buying geographical stability. You're stopping your expensive landscaping from slowly sliding into the river.
Exactly. But the genius is the secondary function.
The seating.
Right. By capping that retaining wall at roughly 18 to 20 inches high and adding a wide, flat top, you've suddenly created built-in, limitless seating.
And the guide mentioned this ties into spatial psychology, something about a theory.
Yeah, it hits on a fascinating human behavioral pattern known as Prospect Refuge Theory.
Prospect Refuge Theory. How does that play out at, like, a backyard barbecue?
Well, think about the last crowded party you attended. When people enter a large open space, they rarely stand dead in the center, do they?
No, actually. They usually migrate to the kitchen island or lean on the walls.
Right. We naturally cluster around the edges, leaning against fences, sitting on the lip of a planter. Evolutionary psychology suggests we want our backs protected.
That's the refuge part.
Exactly. While having a clear, sweeping view of the environment and the people, and that's the prospect.
That is incredibly accurate. The center of the yard is always dead space until someone starts a game. Everyone else is hovering around the perimeter.
Precisely. A curved seating wall leans perfectly into this deeply ingrained behavioral pattern. It acts as a physical boundary that naturally organizes the crowd.
It tells people exactly where to congregate.
Yes, it can elegantly wrap around a custom pool deck or frame an intimate fire pit, giving everyone a place to sit with their backs secure, facing the action.
And practically speaking, you never have to play that frantic game of dragging dusty folding chairs out of the garage when 10 extra people show up.
Oh, that is the worst.
Right. You just toss down a few weather-resistant cushions, and your yard is instantly equipped to handle a massive crowd. You've merged geographical necessity with human instinct.
You stop fighting the dirt, and you naturally guide how your guests interact with the space.
But I'll admit, when I hear terms like concrete fortress and massive retaining boundaries, my mind immediately visualizes like a dystopian 1980s parking garage.
Oh, a lot of people think that.
Or those grim utilitarian gray cinder blocks that look incredibly cold and institutional. If I'm investing in a luxury retreat in my backyard, I don't want it looking like a military checkpoint.
And you're definitely not alone in that hesitation. The myth of the boring gray slab is incredibly persistent.
Yeah, how'd they get past that?
Well, the case study makes a point to emphasize that the era of the ugly gray cinder block is totally dead. Modern concrete engineering has completely solved the aesthetic problem.
It has.
Yeah. Poured concrete is now essentially a chameleon material.
The customization options mentioned in the source truly surprised me. I didn't realize modern concrete could be stamped, stained, and heavily textured.
Oh, heavily.
Like
It
that.
can mimic materials that are far more delicate and expensive, like hand-laid natural stone.
It's a remarkable process. So if you want the opulent, varied look of natural flagstone, but you desperately need the unyielding structural integrity of a poured concrete wall.
You no longer have to compromise.
It's almost deceptive. It's like a Hollywood movie set. It looks like this fragile, beautiful historical architecture on the outside, but underneath, it's built on an indestructible industrial skeleton.
That's a perfect visual. The creative constraints are virtually gone now.
The guide gives some highly specific examples, right, of how they tailor the pour to the surrounding architecture.
They do. Like if a homeowner has a house with a traditional Spanish revival roof, the contractor isn't going to pour a stark gray wall.
That would look terrible.
Right. Instead, they utilize iron oxide pigments mixed directly into the concrete.
So it isn't just surface paint that will chip off.
Exactly. The actual material is tinted completely through. They can create a rustic, warm terracotta vibe that perfectly matches the roofline.
Or, if your taste leans the other way, you can go for sharp, sleek lines for a minimalist, ultra-modern aesthetic. The source also notes they frequently tint the concrete to complement the natural sandy hues of the Gulf Coast. And they can even stamp it with deep wood grain textures.
Which is mind-blowing.
It really is. You can have a seating wall that visually mimics beautiful weathered timber, but it will literally never splinter in the sun or become a home for termites.
You are securing the bespoke, organic aesthetic of a luxury resort, but stripping away the outrageous material costs and the inevitable degradation of those organic materials.
Okay, so we've established this beautiful, deceptive fortress. But to achieve a luxury aesthetic that can actually hold back tons of wet earth and survive 100-mile-per-hour winds for decades,
It takes a bit of work.
yeah, it obviously takes a lot more than just mixing some powder and water in a bucket.
Definitely.
The guide peels back the curtain on the actual construction methodology, and frankly, the anatomy of one of these walls is intensely complex.
The complexity is entirely hidden beneath the surface. When you look at a pristine seating wall, you are really only seeing the final 10% of the work.
That is crazy to think about.
The difference between a wall that lasts a century and a wall that collapses in a year comes down to an invisible science.
I really want to get into that science because I have this toxic trait where I watch a 5-minute internet time-lapse of a yard makeover.
Uh-oh.
And I immediately think, yeah, I could knock that out this weekend with some buddies in a rented mixer.
Please don't do that.
Right. Because reading the breakdown of how these elite contractors actually build these things, it is terrifyingly precise. It starts way before the concrete even arrives, right?
Long before. The process begins with serious excavation. You can never, ever pour a structural wall directly onto topsoil.
Why not?
Well, topsoil is rich in organic matter, which means it compresses under weight, it shifts when wet, and it literally decays over time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, if you build on topsoil, your wall is going to sink. Professionals excavate past that organic layer entirely until they hit stable, load-bearing ground.
And once they hit that stable dirt, they still don't pour. They have to lay down a compacted aggregate, basically a thick layer of crushed rock.
Yeah.
The guide stresses that this is absolutely non-negotiable. Why? What happens if you skip the rocks?
If you skip the aggregate base, you invite the most destructive force in hardscaping, hydrostatic pressure.
Hydrostatic pressure.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds like something that crushes submarines at the bottom of the ocean.
It is the exact same physical principle, just scaled down to your backyard.
Wait, seriously?
Yep. If you've ever looked out your window after a massive thunderstorm and seen a puddle in your yard that just refuses to drain, you are looking at standing water.
Right. Happens all the time.
Well, water is incredibly heavy. It's about 62.4 pounds per cubic foot.
Whoa.
Yeah. So if you don't have a porous base of crushed rock beneath and behind your wall, that groundwater has nowhere to go. It gets trapped against the concrete.
Yeah, it just pushes.
Exactly. As the water builds up, it exerts immense, relentless pressure pushing outward. Without an aggregate base and built-in drainage channels acting as a pressure release valve, that trapped water will literally push the wall until it snaps.
Wow. Okay, so the rock base handles the submarine level water pressure.
You got it.
Then they build custom wooden forms, literally bending wood to create those sweeping natural curves.
Yeah.
And inside those forms, before the liquid concrete goes in, they tie a skeleton of steel rebar.
Yes, the rebar is crucial.
Why does a material as tough as concrete need a steel skeleton?
Because of the difference between compression and tension.
Okay, unpack that.
Concrete has incredible compressive strength, meaning it can support a massive amount of weight pushing down on it without crushing, but it has very core tensile strength.
so it can't stretch.
Right. It does not handle pulling or bending forces well at all. If the earth shifts slightly or tree roots push up, the concrete will want to pull apart and crack.
Ah, I see.
The interwoven steel rebar provides that missing tensile strength. It holds the wall together from the inside so it can flex on a microscopic level without fracturing.
So we have a deep trench, grainage rock, bent wooden molds, and a steel skeleton. Then comes the actual pour. And they don't just grab standard bags from the hardware store. They follow guidelines from the American Concrete Institute, using a specific high PSI concrete mix.
Formulated specifically for the humid Florida environment, yeah.
I see PSI a lot. Pounds per square inch. What does that actually mean for the wall?
PSI measures the ultimate compressive strength of the concrete. It tells you how many pounds of pressure 1 square inch of that concrete can withstand before it crushes.
Okay, so higher is obviously better.
Right. A cheap DIY bag of concrete might cure to 2,000 or 2,500 PSI, which is fine for setting a mailbox post.
Sure.
But for a structural retaining wall in a hurricane zone, professionals use a much denser, high PSI structural mix.
And the density matters because of the humidity, right?
Exactly. A low PSI mix is more porous. In a highly humid, salty environment like the Manatee River, a porous mix allows moisture to penetrate the surface.
Which sounds bad.
It is. When that moisture heats up and expands, it causes surface spalling. That's when the top layer of the beautiful concrete flakes and pops right off, ruining the aesthetic. Oh, that would be heartbreaking.
A specialized high PSI mix cures incredibly dense, locking out the moisture and preventing that spalling entirely.
Makes sense.
Add to this that the contractors handle all the specialized deep footings and the county building permits, because by installing this, you are officially altering the drainage patterns of the land.
Yeah, you quickly realize why DIY is a terrible idea.
Really is.
That completely dismantles my weekend warrior hubris. If you misjudge the specific sandy soil composition, or if you skimp on that aggregate base to save a few bucks,
You are practically guaranteeing a massive, irreparable crack right down the middle of your wall in 6 months.
so when homeowners write the check for these elite services, they aren't just paying for the physical labor of guys moving heavy mud.
Not at all.
They are paying for the invisible science. They are paying for the peace of mind that hydrostatic pressure isn't going to blow up their backyard during the next hurricane.
Precise.
Which naturally brings us to this sticker shock.
Let's talk about it. We're talking excavators, custom steel skeletons, high PSI structural mixes, county permits. My wallet is hurting just hearing the process.
It's a significant investment, definitely.
This is a very heavy investment compared to buying a wooden patio set. Does this level of extreme hardscaping actually make financial sense? Or is it just a vanity project for the ultra-wealthy?
It makes profound financial sense, actually. And the economics of hardscaping might be the most compelling takeaway from this entire guide.
Really?
Yeah, this isn't just about making a yard look beautiful for your friends. It is a direct asset transfer into your property. High-quality hardscaping yields a massive return on investment.
The numbers cited from the National Association of Realtors are wild. Poured concrete patios and seating walls average an 85% to 100% ROI.
It's huge.
You are basically recouping nearly every dollar you spend in the added equity of your home.
And we have to ask why that ROI is so extraordinarily high, especially compared to interior renovations like, kitchen remodels that often depreciate the moment styles change.
All right, why does outside matter so much?
It comes down to the psychological relief of the home buyer.
Oh, it makes total sense. Buying a home is exhausting. The cognitive load is massive.
Exactly. Buyers, especially in volatile coastal markets, flat out refuse to buy what the industry calls a project yard.
A project yard.
Yeah. When a potential buyer walks into a backyard and sees a sprawling, rotting wooden deck, their brain immediately starts calculating the future labor.
Oh, definitely. They see weekends lost to power washing, staining, replacing warped boards.
It feels like a burden, but when they walk out and see a sweeping, permanent stone structure holding back the earth, that burden completely lifts.
It's peace of mind as an amenity.
Yes.
And the data backs that up, right? Homes with these defined permanent outdoor living spaces sell up to 20% faster in these markets.
Which is a huge advantage for sellers.
Plus, on a day-to-day basis, professional hardscaping reduces long-term yard maintenance costs by nearly 30%.
Right. You are literally replacing high-maintenance grass and wood with zero-maintenance stone.
And we shouldn't overlook The luxury integrations that drive that value even higher.
Oh, the tech integrations are amazing.
Because contractors are pouring the wall from scratch, they can integrate technology seamlessly.
Yes, the LED lighting.
The guide mentions they run the wiring for hidden undercap lighting right through the forms before the pour.
It's so clever.
So at night, the underside of the seating wall glows, illuminating the patio for safety and ambience. But during the day, there are zero ugly wires or plastic fixtures visible anywhere.
It is completely encased in the stone.
It's the ultimate marriage of form and function.
It really is. To put the financials in perspective, investing in a cheap wooden deck is like buying a depreciating car.
Oh, I like that comparison.
The moment it's finished, it starts losing value and costing you in maintenance. Investing in an engineered concrete seating wall is like buying blue-chip stocks that you can actually physically sit on.
And host a fire pit night on.
Exactly, and enjoy it while it holds its value.
It's like burying treasure in your yard that you can actually use.
Yeah.
You're parking your money in an asset that survives extreme weather.
Yeah.
The source notes that a professionally installed high PSI concrete retaining wall is designed to last 50 to 100 years with virtually zero maintenance.
Zero.
Wood needs constant sealing, iron needs sanding and painting, concrete just asks you to sit down.
We are tracing a massive paradigm shift here. We're moving away from a disposable consumer mindset where we buy cheap things and throw them away when the weather ruins them.
Right.
We are moving toward a true architectural mindset.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, that is the exact lens I want you, the listener, to apply to your own environment today.
Take a look outside.
Yeah, take a look at your window, look at your patio, your deck, your yard. Are you constantly fighting a losing battle against your local climate with flimsy, high-maintenance solutions?
Are you trapped in that cycle?
Are you dragging chairs in and out of the garage every time the wind picks up? Or are you ready to start building with real permanence, integrating function directly into the earth itself?
And to push that thought just a little bit further, I want you to consider the timeline we just discussed.
The 100 years.
Right. A properly engineered backyard seating wall is designed to last a century. It is physically built to outlast the very hands that poured the concrete.
Wow.
If we start building our everyday spaces to outlast us, if we begin thinking in terms of centuries rather than seasons, how would that fundamentally change the way you design the rest of your life today?
The 100-year yard. I absolutely love that. So the next time you look out back and see a rusty patio chair slowly dissolving into the grass, don't head to the big box store to buy another one. Maybe it's time to dig a trench, tie some steel, and build a fortress.